We'll just start with Google Maps. Google Maps, you put something in there and it'll give you a whole bunch of options, like punch in there to go from Cathedral City to Nebraska. And it'll put one route down through New Mexico and Arizona, and then up somewhere, and another route goes through Colorado, and another one Salt Lake City, and all that. And the amazing thing is it tells you exactly how far it is and what's the road work and what's going on there. You remember AAA and what was it called, Trip Kicks? Where they give you these 45 things that you have to keep turning. I prefer this. Wouldn't that be nice if life were like that, that all these options were out there before you, all these different routes, all these different journeys? Well, in a sense, they are. They are sitting out there. We have all kinds of options, twists and turns that we can go. But it's all those decisions and twists and turns and experiences and people and places and times that have shaped us on a journey that ends up right here this morning. Kind of fascinating. We are all journey people. We are all travelers. And it's all those experiences that shape not only we being here, but who we are. Who we are as people, how we think, how we talk, how we act. All of that has come into play in our lives. Now, I love to talk to people, as you probably figured out along the way. And I especially love to talk to, I call them the road warriors. If you've met any of these people, they are people that are always on the move from one town to another, stopping at the church maybe to get a little bit of food or something, and maybe a bus ticket to the next place. Had one come through in Nebraska. Lincoln, Nebraska is on Interstate 80, so we got a lot of people there. And the one, I sat and talked to him for a while and just listened to his stories, and it was just fascinating. Then he'd started out in Pennsylvania. He'd worked as a youth in the apple and peach orchards there. He had moved across the country in different states and worked on farms and worked on dairy farms. And he'd worked his way all the way across to Nebraska. He said he was going out to California. All he wanted was a bit of food and a bus ticket to the next town. And I thought that was a pretty even match because of all these stories that he had told me about his life and the experiences that he had. I thought that was a pretty cheap price to pay for that. When we were in Cincinnati, I told you before, the pastor and I that was at the downtown cathedral church, they had space for like 1,200 people because it was the big cathedral. They worshiped probably 20 or 25 Sunday mornings. So pastor and I got together and we did a Monday morning service for people that were just there, that lived in the immediate area. Some of them still lived on the streets. Some were in the, what was it called, drop-in center or something like that, where they could stay overnight. Some of them had maybe a one-room little apartment that they could actually stay in and lock a door. So we had this service, and they would come. We had like 20 or 30 or 40. We actually had more people than Sunday morning most of the time. And if you'd look at this group, you would think, well, they all kind of look the same, all kind of dressed the same, and you you wouldn't think there was much difference. But it was fascinating when I would preach and talk about maybe growing up on a farm in Nebraska, or that I served in Vietnam. After the service, there was always 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 of them come up there. And well, I grew up on a little farm in Alabama, and we raised hogs and, this and that. And somebody would say, well, I served in Vietnam. Where did you serve? It was like they were just wanting to tell their stories, and they just heard part of my story, and they wanted to tell their story. They were just anxious to tell that. It's fascinating to hear those stories and to hear how all those stories shaped their lives and brought them to the place where they were. If something had changed along the way, maybe they wouldn't have been there. Maybe they'd been somewhere else. These things that happen in people's lives that change them, that's to me also fascinating. Andrew Zimmern. Everybody knows who Andrew Zimmern is, don't you? Bizarre Foods, Delicious Destinations. What's the other? It has like 3 or 4 shows. Do you know his life history? He was living on the streets, a drug addict, alcoholic, and his life was just about over. And somewhere along the line, something touched his life. He got into a treatment center and basically ended up being, I guess we could say, world famous. And he still, to this day, goes back and teaches. He teaches the culinary arts to people that were living on the streets so that they could become chefs and get a job and get back into the system. His life was completely changed by that and went a completely different journey. We could talk about some people in the Bible even. We could talk about, how about Mary and Joseph? Something happened in their life that really changed their life radically. Their lives would never be the same again after that little incident in Bethlehem. Or the disciples. Imagine the disciples. They were flying along, fishing, and doing all the other things that they did, and all of a sudden, here comes Jesus journeying right with them and takes them along. Their lives would never be the same. They would be changed by that experience. We have to talk about, Paul, who at one time was called Saul, who was a very, put it politely, very nasty person, a Christian killer. And all of a sudden, God says, well, hey, I need you. And there was this incident where his life was completely changed. He became one of the first and foremost evangelists the church has ever had by that experience with Jesus. So it's all these experiences in our lives that change us, and we go on different journeys. And I think I put it in there, just as a little bit of a tease that my life was changed by 6 votes. You can credit 6 votes for my being here today. Oh, you want to hear the story? Okay. My wife and I had a supermarket back in our hometown. One day, a few of the people in town came to me and said, well, there's a position on the council, and we'd like you to run for that position. And I said, why not, Well, I went out and campaigned and all this stuff, and now you know where the 6 votes came from. I lost by 6 votes. Losing by 6 votes, we kind of looked at each other and said, well, she wanted to go into nursing. I was kind of thinking about going into the ministry, so we said, okay, why not? If I would have won, who knows? So, we all have these incidents, all these things that happen in this journey of our life. You could fill in all kinds of stories about your life. And interestingly enough, I know quite a few of them already, of your life. So, but all of us have these journeys, and we're trucking along on our journey, and we sometimes have a tendency to look over there and say, boy, that journey over there, that other person, that's kind of nice. I'd like to have that. Wouldn't that be nice if I could be in their journey? Or, I got to find a spot where nobody is. What's wrong with them? Don't think, why? Why are they doing what they're doing? We like to do that, don't we? And how can we do that when we don't know all the experiences, all their life, all their journeys that they've been on that have brought them to the place where they are? How can we, it's almost insulting to say something like that to someone, because we don't know their stories. The only way we can begin to know them, to know what's going on in their lives, is to listen to their stories, to listen where they've been, to what they've done, the people in their lives and what's happened to them. Then we begin to understand who they are, why they are acting the way they are, why they are talking the way they are. You suppose this world needs a whole lot more people listening than yelling at each other. Wouldn't that be fun? I think Jesus was a very good listener. The story today talks about the tax collectors and the prostitutes. Imagine Jesus sitting there and listening to those stories about the young lady and all the trials and tribulations and things that had happened in her life, or the tax collector, the hatred that he had felt. Jesus listened, sat and listened to them. He brought them onto his journey. He loved them, and he took them from there with him on his journey. That has happened today to all of us. Jesus has sat with all of us and listened to our stories. All the things that have happened to us. Jesus knows us completely, more than anyone else, and has loved us and taken us on a journey with him. There are people, and you run into them all the time, that live around us, that are just waiting to tell their stories, to talk about what's going on in their life, to tell them that their aunt is sick, or their cat isn't feeling well. They're just waiting for someone to listen. And we are the ones to listen. For we make up the presence of Jesus. We bring that presence of Jesus
to these people's lives.
We not only take them on a journey into our lives, we take them on a journey with Jesus.